welcome to the Red Devils Den. So today we're going to go through the Sociedad game because we didn't have time to go for that. Well, we didn't go for that because we didn't do a podcast on it. We're going to go through the Newcastle game, talk a bit about the resurgence of Dan James, stuff like that, how the game went. We're going to talk about the defence, stuff like that. The game coming up, the second leg against Sociedad. So just briefly touch on the Sociedad game that was last week because it was almost a full week ago now, so we won't go into too much depth. It was Resurgent. What was your thoughts on that first leg?
The biggest thing in a cup match is always to make sure you get through, and especially with the fixture congestion that we have this season, it was important to come out of the first leg with a substantial win. And the beauty of winning 4-0 last week is we can take the midweek easy, give a lot of the first team players the time off, and then be fully prepped and rested for Chelsea in midweek, on the weekend. So I think ultimately the result was the most important thing, and it was great seeing Ahmad get minutes as well. So I was really satisfied with that match.
Yeah, same. What was you thinking, Dan?
Well, especially when we went to the start of the game, you thought, oh no, what is this going to be? Because, with Bailly making those two mistakes, they had a couple of chances. So you sort of sat there thinking this is going to be a long, long night. But, we sort of rode the storm and we came out very well. I think we played really well in the second half. Obviously, a couple of goals from that man, Bruno, once again, Rashford, and it was good to see Dan James get a goal as well. I think he played really well all game and he did deserve his start at the weekend. So as Resurgent said, it's very important to get through, and it's good that it's it's away from home as well. So now we obviously take that lead back to Old Trafford, and perhaps start a couple of young players. Rest some first team players, but it was a good game. It was a good performance, and I was really happy with the result in the end.
So I wanted to ask Apollo, what was your thoughts on the game and the Europa League in general? Do you think we're favourites to win the competition, or we should be expected to win it?
On the game, I think it's quite telling that European opposition haven't yet realised what the Premier League knows. If you give us the space to counter, we'll tear you apart, and it hasn't. The message hasn't quite sunk into European teams yet. So we really were able to capitalise on that against Sociedad. But it was a good win, and now we can rest quite a few players ahead of the Chelsea game, which is really important. So I was pleased with it. And as for whether or not we're favourites, I think we are. I can't see anyone in there in the draw that we should go into fearing. We should fancy ourselves to win the tournament.
Yeah, I totally agree. Josh, what do you think about that? About the tournament game in general?
I think Sociedad played like they'd never seen us play before. Like they gave us so much time and space to play them balls in behind. But we also played like a team that was very pissed off to be in that competition. Like we played like we just wanted the job to be done. We were ruthless. I think them early moments probably woke us up a bit and was like, okay, we're in a game. Let's sort it out now, because we've got time and space. And I really enjoyed the match in general because after the West Brom game, it was a much needed performance, but also result.
Sociedad played the way that you see most teams in Spain and Germany, and even France to an extent, approach matches, an open contest, trying to play the better football, be the better team than the opponent. And that's not the way that a lot of the low blocks in the Premier League face us. So it really suited us. But I think it wasn't that they hadn't seen us play. It was just that's the way football in Spain and Germany is played, and it plays into our hands. Obviously, I think if we faced a team from Serie A or another Premier League side in the next round, that's probably what worried me the most. Although I do agree we are favourites.
I agree. They just played the way that we wanted them to play. And when you play such a high line against the likes of James, Rashford, etc., it's always going to be difficult for them. But
it's why you end up with the kind of the tax for the Bundesliga or for the La Liga, where you have Iago Aspas scoring 25 goals a season, just because no one is defending. I mean, everyone is pushed up to the halfway line, leaves massive space in behind, and if you're a pacey player, you can rack up the stats. If that's Aspas, or even if you're talking about a better player, Jadon Sancho in the Bundesliga, he's not going to have those numbers in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
No. So yeah, we were just going to touch on that briefly, and we have. So moving on to the Newcastle game. What was your guys' thoughts on that? Because obviously it was, quite a poor first half, but then we sort of picked it up and scored a few goals, which was nice. And then we saw a debut from Shola Shoretire, which is the right pronunciation.
Yay.
So what were your thoughts on that, Josh?
I was really frustrated throughout the game, to be honest. I was sat in my where I'm sat now, and I was losing my head. I was like, what is going on? Are we just chalk and cheese from Thursday night? Are we going to sleepwalk into another drop points against a pathetic side? Although in fairness to Newcastle, they actually played pretty well, to be fair. They pressed really well. They were aggressive. But I just thought, I've seen this before from this team, where other teams have dropped points and we've not capitalised. But in general, after the 60-minute mark, about that time, we upped our performance, closed the match really well. I thought when Mason came on, he was really good. He made some great touches and passes, and obviously the Shola debut, which is what this club's about, and it's just embedded in our club, and I love it.
Yeah, I think that picture of when Shoretire was coming on for Rashford, and they just sort of did a safe or something. That was, it was indicative of what the club's about, because obviously they're both academy graduates, really young players. That's exactly when I see that's what Ollie's Van Gaal, I guess, did it as well. But Ollie's
Even
really
David
instilling
Moyes
that
to an extent with Januzaj. So really, even Jose Mourinho, known for hating on youth players, gave Scott McTominay his chance. It's such a part of the club's DNA that even the most anti-youth managers in world football come here and then give debuts to young players. It's great to see.
Yeah. So Dan, what was your thoughts on the Newcastle game overall?
I agree with what Josh said. In a large sense that it felt like we was going to sleepwalk into another 0-0 draw or something like that. And I think sometimes play. Sorry, let me turn the lamp on. I think it feels like sometimes the players at this club right now, they forget they're good players. A lot of the time, we start games, it's slow, it's sideways, it's backwards, and then someone does something how Marcus did something, and then they wake up and think, oh shit, yeah, we're actually good players and we can sort of steamroll these teams. So I thought when we scored the first goal that we was really going to kick on and start dominating the game. But Newcastle did play really well. They pressed us very well. I think Miguel Almiron played really well all game. But yeah, it's even after we scored the first goal and then they got back in it by surprise, another ball into the box. You thought, I thought it was going to stay 1-1 after that, because they didn't change their game plan. Their heads didn't go down. They kept coming at us the way they did. So I thought it was going to stay like that. But obviously, after James got his goal, that was then what woke us up, and the players thought, oh yeah, we actually can play. We actually can play good football. And luckily we got another goal. So yeah, like Josh said, really frustrating for the first half. I don't know if it's like a mental thing, these players forgetting they're good players, or they don't want to concede, or lack of creativity, or they just need waking up. I mean, a lot of the time when we go 1-0 down, or like not so much now, but in the game previously, it took us, going 1-0 down to wake us up. Again, it just, I like Josh said, we just seem to sort of sleepwalk into these like bad positions, and then need something to then wake us up and make us start playing again.
Yeah, that's why our second half record is probably so good.
Maybe that's why we.
I think it's spot on there. So also Dan James sort of made a resurgence. We sort of briefly touched on that. So Apollo, I know you're a big advocate of Dan James. I think most of us are. But what was your thoughts on him and his future in the squad?
I think something that I haven't seen said by anyone really, that So he had quite a while out of the team, and I think Ole basically said to him, "You need to work on this, this, and this if you want to get back in the team." And since he's come back in, I personally think I've seen little technical things from him that we didn't see before. I'm not trying to claim he's like massively different, just a step in the right direction, like playing little touches, like little back heels, passes into tighter areas that he wouldn't have done before. I think technically he's in the right direction, I should say. Like I say, I'm not trying to say he's the finished product. Just I feel like you can see the benefit of the coaching going on behind the scenes. So that's why I said before the game against Newcastle that because of that, I want to see how he does against them. And as far as against the low block team goes, I feel like that's the best he's probably played.
Yeah, certainly against like a low block team. I think the coaching has gone on behind the scenes. You said he's improved with that. I think technically, his decision making as well. They were all really, really solid.
You think of the classic Dan James moments last season when he first got here, and it was either cutting in from the left and shooting, or he would make a run down the right wing and then play an early cross, and then that would go to Marcus Rashford or Martial to try to do something that would be like a low cross. The goal against Liverpool in the home match comes to mind. And those were kind of the two things that he did. But you look at him now and you can see that he's making different runs. He's looking for those little one-touch passes. He's playing off his fullback more. So he's more involved in the broader build-up play, and I think that's what Apollo was touching on. The coaching has just built him up to be something completely different than what we saw last season, and the time out of the limelight has done him well. And it just goes to show that you can't write off players based on 5-10 game sample sizes, and then if you haven't seen them in a year or so, you just decide they're not good enough, and you say that they're a mid-table player. I might have said that about a month ago, and they can come back and start to prove you wrong. Or start. I mean, he's got a long way to go, but start.
I really like what he said after the Newcastle game in his interview. And he said, I sort of lost my way a bit, but I've been working with the coaching staff, and I'm sort of getting it back now. And I absolutely love that, because a player can be out of form, but as long as they show that they're willing to work on that, and as long as you work for this team, I'll always have so much time for this player. I mean, like there has been times when he's been in the team, he hasn't played particularly well, but he's always run more than anyone else on that pitch. And for me personally, that means so much. I mean, it's like Scott McTominay. Like even last season, obviously he's kicked on this season so much, but even last season, when he wasn't playing as well as he is now, he always gives everything every game. And as long as players are willing to give that and they're willing to improve themselves, then I will always have so much time for players. I mean, the past two games, Dan James has looked so up for it, and he just looked happy to be on the pitch, and it's really good to see him playing well.
I think he has to look at people like Luke Shaw, who's also come out in interviews and said, look, I wasn't doing well enough. And, when you take accountability, I think that's the first step to improving as a person and obviously as a footballer anyway. I think he's given us so many happy moments, like his first goal, and now that he's coming back through. I think he's just such a person where you can be really happy for him, because he's so like authentic and there's nothing fake about him. He works hard. He's obviously popular in the dressing room. Remember that dancing video that came out after lockdown, which was pretty funny, and with Pogba and Pereira and stuff. I'm really, really happy for him, and hopefully he can have a few more goals and assists before the end of the season.
What's nice as well this year is that we're using him properly. When he come in last year, he wasn't meant to play the amount of games that he did, because obviously he came from the Championship, and I don't think he was. I know for a fact that he wasn't just meant to be just thrown to the side and play as many games as he did, because obviously Ollie wanted to bring him in, develop him, improve him. But because of the fact that he was thrown in straight away, it was obviously too big for him. I mean, it's going to be, isn't it? And then obviously the games that he played, have obviously knocked his confidence. Obviously stuff online has probably knocked his confidence, and he's obviously went through all that stuff with his dad, which was awful as well. But obviously now this season, like Mason's playing on the right a bit more, and now Ollie's sort of like slowly bringing him back into the squad. And I think playing him like this is using him properly until he's developed to be a starter, or he might always be a squad player. But he won't be playing week in, week out like he was last year, and I think that was detrimental to him, really.
He's developing into a Park Ji-sung type of player. You can throw him in. He gives that defensive effort from the wing, and it's really useful against the bigger sides. Although now he's getting that second dimension to his game against the low blocks as well. And like you said, it's just so easy to root for a player who's working hard every single match. I mean, it's the classic saying that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think Dan James and a couple of players in our squad who are on the other end of the spectrum of that really show how easy it is to like those players who put in that effort, and they can develop over time, as we're seeing with Scott McTominay.
I think that leads us to quite a good tangent to talk about Martial, because the situation's kind of the opposite of, I'm not seeing the effort to try and play yourself back into form, and it's hard to really understand that, because if everyone's out of form at some point, but you've got to work to try and get yourself back into form, and I'm just not seeing that.
Yeah, he is so frustrating. I love Tony Martial. When he's in form, he's unplayable. But not only is he out of form right now, he's very, very, very out of form. I mean, I thought after the Southampton game, he got himself a couple of goals. I thought, right, okay, that's sort of a platform now. He can sort of kick on from this. But then the next game, he's doing the same stuff. He's offering absolutely nothing. His body language isn't good enough, and there's a player in there. I mean, it's like Gary Neville went on a whole thing about it, saying one of the most frustrating things of football is when a player doesn't apply themselves, because he's got the skill set. He's an elite dribbler. He's a fantastic finisher, and he's got pace. He just needs the mindset of a Dan James, really, and it's just so frustrating at the moment.
Yeah, I think you look at Reese. I think you look at Martial's form, and what it brings to mind for me is it's different in the sense that Martial is lazier than Jesse Lingard. But last season at the start, Jesse Lingard would be thrown into every single match. Ollie was desperately trying to get him to play his way back into form. And then there was that moment kind of around November time, I want to say, where his patience just snapped. And then Jesse Lingard was basically never in the team again, apart from like...
One more time and you're fucking off.
Exactly, yeah. And then he had the cameos after that for a year and a half, but he basically never was a first-team regular again. And I wonder how close to that point Ollie is with Martial, because he doesn't have Jesse Lingard's effort. And so it's easier to... or rather, it's more of a... there's less patience for him, essentially, because of his lack of effort. And I think we're getting to that point now, because for me personally, I look at our team and I say, okay, our best front three is Greenwood, Cavani, Rashford. And then I think, okay, if one of them is injured, who should come in? And right now the answer is Dan James. And then you look at, okay, then who? And then it's between Martial and Amad Diallo, who just got here. And I think the fact that I'm saying that at all really shows how far he's fallen in 6 months, coming off of his best season last year. And he needs to find that application, because like we said earlier with Dan James, it's easy to support a player, for us and for the manager, if he's putting in the effort. But when you see he's lazy, there's that point, I think 1 or 2 matches ago where, or no, it was the Sheffield United game rather, where he was just outside the box. It was the 90th minute. You could see Cavani and Rashford are making runs into the box, and Martial has stood basically at the left wing position pointing rather than actually making any kind of usable run. And I think that he needs to correct that. If he's making an effort and he just can't find the finish, or he's not beating his man, it's easy to support him. But when he's at this point where he's just not even trying things, it's like, well, at that point, you might as well just go with Shola Shoretire and hope for the best.
I can't help... Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, there was that clip of him in the Newcastle game where Dan James is absolutely busting a gut to get down the wing and put the ball in. And he's jogging into the box, and the only time he makes any sort of sprinting movement is when Caudalo's already got the ball in his gloves. That's just not... it's not right. It's unacceptable, really.
I can't help but feel it's competition based, in the sense of you want a top 4 team when you need that competition. You want players to say, right, I've got someone competing for my place, I need to do better. Like Shaw did with Tellez, he's raised his game further. And I can't see that with Martial. I feel like when he has competition, he buckles.
Yeah, so
I
I think in sports psychology, it's called need to avoid failure mentality or a need to achieve mentality, and he's obviously got a need to avoid failure mentality, unfortunately.
Look, I don't think it's any coincidence that it coincided with when Cavani came in, that the form just went out the window. Now he has some competition.
He has a history of this. You look at it when Zlatan came in, when Lukaku came in, Martial's form falls off a cliff. And that's just not acceptable at a club like ours. He needs to get over it or get out, honestly. And I love Tony Marshall. I want him to succeed here. I'm not at the point where I want to sell him, but we could get there in a year's time, in a year and a half's time, if he doesn't fix his mentality.
Ollie's made that clear that he'll do that. Remember that interview about seeing if a player does something, they do it again, then you wean them off. He won't give him an infinite number of chances. There will come a time where he says enough is enough.
Yeah, go on, Josh.
I tried to go in so much. There's a lot of people who are saying like, "Oh, people have short memories about Martial last season. He did this," but he's not putting any effort in. So it's not short memories. You're a disgrace to the shirt at the moment because I'm not seeing you run. I'm not seeing you try as much as Dan James, who's on a lot less money. And I hate to make it about money, but he's on a lot of money and he has a lot of expectations on his shoulders. Imagine if he had the expectation of Rashford and Bruno, who get criticised even when they score goals. He'd crumble. For me, I know Resurgent just said he's not at the point where he's thinking of selling him. I would sell him 100% because there's targets out there who would come in and do a lot better than him. I'm not being sentimental with Anthony Martial because I reckon he's had two and a half good seasons out of the time he's been here. A lot of it's not his fault. A lot of it's the previous manager. But he's under a manager who will never throw him under the bus, will constantly give him chances, and he's wasting his opportunities week in, week out.
This is the thing. I mean, he's getting a lot of minutes. Ollie is still putting his faith in him. He's giving him chances and more chances to play himself back into form, and he's got to take these. Even if he's not scoring goals, there's a lot of other ways to apply yourself to a football match. I mean, because he's not a classic number 9, is he really? I mean, I know he did well last season. I know he's got the number 9 shirt, but you look at his average positioning and things like that, he's always drifting out into that half space on the left. And he's not your classic number 9. And he sort of made us forget that last year with the amount of goals. And you thought, right, okay, maybe we don't need another striker. This seems to be working. He's got a really good relationship with Rashford. They're playing those lovely little triangles around the box, making space for each other. And even when you played the two up top, they were splitting centre halves, like in the City game, and they were playing really well. And if you ask me, like, sort of this, like, last season, post-lockdown, like, if someone told me, Anthony Martial's going to be bang out of form next season by, in February, he's going to be scored 4 league goals, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? He's unplayable at the moment. But again, it's that need to avoid failure mentality that he has because we brought Cavani in. At this club, you're at Manchester United, you have got the number 9 shirt, which got taken away from you. Ollie has given you that back. He's put so much faith in you. You need to repay that faith. Even if you're not scoring, you need to be running into the box. You need to be making space. You need to be getting involved in the build-up play. Just give me something. Give me some effort,
It's not even just that we brought in Cavani as competition. Ollie could have gone out and spent 70, 80 million pounds on a striker. We brought in a 34-year-old on a free transfer. I know he's worked out fantastically and we all love him, but ultimately he's 34 years old and he was on a free transfer. If you're Tony Marshall, that's probably the lightest competition you can expect at a club like United. And he's buckling under that pressure as well. So, I mean, what's going to happen if, we're rumored to be interested in Erling Haaland or one of these other, or like some people say we like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If Ollie brings in one of these players, what's going to happen to Tony Marshall? It's just, his future has definitely become a topic for conversation.
Everything Dan's just said there about if he's not scoring goals, do something else. Well, that's what Mason Greenwood's doing. Like, Martial only has to look to his right and see Greenwood and Dan James are improving different parts of their game because, well, Dan James has been scoring goals, but Mason's not been scoring, so he's trying other things. He's working much harder. He's tracking back. He is getting involved in build-up play. He's improving his passing. I just don't think Martial's got it. I don't see it in his eyes. I don't see it in his body language. And as Roy Keane always says, your eyes don't lie to you. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it in him.
Yeah, and I think it's quite telling that I think I saw a clip about it was Ali basically saying move Anto, move. You need to start running more. And I think it's telling that even the manager is sort of noticing, you need to put in more effort and you need to be making more runs. Because he can be effective.
He did start moving after that. But what is he, 25? He's becoming a senior pro. You shouldn't be needing to tell him things like that.
No, you shouldn't have to. But yeah, we spoke about Martial quite a bit. We'll move on to what we've talked about lots of attacking players like James, Martial. Why don't we talk about the defence? Because obviously that's been quite an issue with this season. So how do we think we should improve this defence? Because we again didn't get a clean sheet yesterday. Not yesterday or whenever it was. But so, resurgent, how do you think we need to improve the defence? Is it the midfield cover or the centre backs?
Well, this segment is brought to you by Dean Henderson 2021. That's ultimately the start of it. It starts from the goalkeeper. There's a great clip that I shared on my Twitter feed earlier today, and if you can probably just find it. I think Stephen Housen shared it as well. It's a contrast between Dean Henderson in the Sociedad match, and then it's David De Gea against Newcastle. The ball comes in, floated into the 6-yard box, and then Dean Henderson comes and claims it, and David De Gea is statuesquely stuck to his line, forces Harry Maguire to have to head it while moving backwards, which means the ball stays in play, and then somehow our defense is left St. Maximin completely unmarked, and he goes on and scores. And it's a multi-step issue, but it starts with the goalkeeper. Then you've got a partner for Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, who does not provide enough in the air. And so that's another issue. And then once you've taken care of both of those, you can maybe talk about a defensive midfielder, although I don't think changing out Matic or McTominay for Ndidi or Declan Rice is going to solve the issues independent of the other two. I think it's the lowest priority. First and foremost, you need to change the goalkeeper, and then after that, go ahead and sign a center back in the summer who can come in and be dominant in the air like Harry Maguire, just with more pace.
It's like we spoke about on the last one. These sort of like direct comparisons of Dino and De Gea keep coming up. The Everton game where De Gea palms it to Decore, the game after that, the similar cross comes in and Dino palms it right into one of our centre halves, and then obviously that clip that you just mentioned as well. Yeah.
So, what sort of defenders do you think we could get? I know United Research was saying Milenkovic.
I'm here for Milenkovic propaganda and nothing else.
Well, I didn't mention Milenkovic on the podcast, but it's one thing that we discussed beforehand. I posted a thread based on something that Planet Football posted, just looking at successful tackles, just various stats for Milenkovic against our center halves. And you look at it, and he's better in the air than Harry Maguire. He has the highest successful tackle percentage, better than Eric Bailly. He goes on and has better interceptions than Victor Lindelof. His clearances are better than Maguire. There's certain areas where he has to improve. His passing accuracy isn't the greatest, but you look at it on the whole, and at least from the numbers, I haven't had a chance to watch him yet, but in terms of his progressive passing yards, he's similar to Varane, Maguire, and Lindelof. He looks like an attractive package, so he's definitely someone I'd be looking at. I watched Jules Koundé last week. He wasn't the most impressive given the hype, but I think there's promise there. You can see the talent. I don't know if he's a great fit, but you can see the talent. And then I saw Sven Botman has been mentioned. There's a lot of people out there. There's no shortage of center backs on the market at whatever price range the club is shopping in. It's just a case of signing somebody with the right scouting and then Ole making the decision to say this person is coming in as a first choice, and we don't end up with that person sat on the bench instead of Bailly and Lindelof keep starting. Because ultimately the manager has to be willing to play the new signing as well.
So what other centre backs do you think? Anyone can give their ideas, but is there any other centre backs that anyone else thinks could fit that role? Or, are you replacing Lindelof? I'd imagine.
I'd like to rule someone out as such. So a lot of people do mention Koundé, but I think and a lot of people who don't like the ideas mention his height. But I think there's a bigger issue than that. I think that in a centre back pairing, to be a successful one, you need one progressive centre back who goes forward with the ball, who makes interceptions, that sort of thing, and then you need one who stays back. To me, based on when I've watched Koundé, he is one of the ones who gets forward and he wants to carry the ball up the field, and we already have that in Maguire. We need the other profile, and I don't think having two centre backs who want to drive forward all the time is the right balance. I think you need someone more comfortable staying back.
I think I'm going to have to disagree with you there, honestly, because while you're right that Koundé does look to move forward, if you look at him, he's got tremendous pace, and so that recovery pace is very similar to Eric Bailly, and he brings a good profile in that sense, complementary to Maguire. And I think he can play that role. I think it's just the way Sevilla are set up tactically that he's the one who's given the responsibility of coming forward because Diego Carlos isn't suited to that. So I think what you're talking about is more of an artifact of Sevilla's tactics or Julian Lopetegui's system than it is Koundé necessarily. I think with the right coaching, he's a young player. He has got tremendous talent. And so I think he could fit. It's just, personally, for me, it's the aerials that I'd be more concerned about. But and the other thing is, I think if you look at it, all he does want two progressive center backs. You look at Victor Lindelof. Well, the reason why he gets preferred to Eric Bailly is he's a far superior progressive passer. In an elite team trying to compete for the Champions League, you want to have those two center backs who can go ahead and create, because if you're facing a low block, you can't just have one center back sitting back and doing nothing the whole match. And so I think there is a room for Jules Koundé potentially. I'm not sure if he's the right one. I've only seen him once or twice, but I don't think we're right to rule him out just yet.
Fair enough.
Resurgent makes a good point there, because if you look at City, for example, Stones and Diaz, they both push up. One of them might stay sometimes. They're both brilliant passers, especially John Stones. Same with Liverpool when Van Dijk and Gomez were playing. One would go sometimes, the other wouldn't. And yeah, I would say it's a system issue. And you also made a good point, Resurgent, about maybe number 6 or defensive midfielder isn't the priority, and it is the goalkeeper and the centre-back changes that would probably see a big change in the team. I don't think a lot of people are looking like that. I think a lot of people are saying, a world-class defensive midfielder changes this team. I'm not sure if it does, because the same errors will continue to happen with this defence. I just feel like every time we have a set piece against us, something's going to happen. Like in the Newcastle game, I don't think we defended one particularly well at all game. Like it would either get headed out and Voldemort would be on the edge of the box looking to score, or it would be, St. Maximin would pick it up in the box, or Kieran Clark would be just a whisker away. And teams are going to from now, while it's the business end of the season, they're going to focus on that when they play against us. So Dean Henderson needs to be instated as the number one as soon as possible.
Do you think we should bring a set piece coach in to try and help the situation regardless?
100%. Anthony Barry went to Chelsea from Wigan, and he completely transformed Chelsea's set pieces. Like Chelsea have scored 8 Premier League goals from set pieces, and I don't think they concede many at all.
Liverpool have got a bloody throwing coach, mate.
I know, a throwing coach. And we are terrible at throw-ins. I hate our throw-ins too.
Sorry, just 1 second. As far as the set pieces go, I was looking at it. Goals conceded from set pieces. There's only 4 teams that have conceded 10 or more goals from set pieces. Sheffield United, Leeds, Crystal Palace, and Manchester United. We're down there with bottom half teams in this sense, and it's got to be resolved with both coaching and transfers.
Well, if you have a weakness that open and exposed, that obvious, it's terrible. Like, it's so obvious. Like you saw Sheffield United focusing on it, Newcastle focusing on it. Everyone's crowding around De Gea. If you have a weakness that exposed, clubs are going to say, get it in and around the box, get a corner, and then crowd around the keeper. You you put 5 or 6 corners in, you probably guarantee the goal against this side.
One thing I would add though is that it's not just the personnel. So the personnel is the problem, and I think Henderson will help. But we also need a set piece coach. I think you need both things, because I think there's a fundamental issue with the way we deal with set pieces that as a team. So it's not just there. It's we have bigger issues as the team defending them.
I mean, you look at it. United setup under Ollie has reminded me this entire time of Rafa Benitez's Liverpool team with the zonal marking and the box on set pieces. And they had a problem conceding set pieces as well. In the Premier League, when you've got center backs who are 6'4", 6'5", defensive midfielders similar height, and you've got strikers like Chris Wood, there's too many players of a good height that you can just zonally mark them out. Ultimately, we have to go man to man, and I would love to see a set piece coach brought in to do that.
I think that's why Maguire is never on the tallest man, because he's defending a zone, and people always say, "Oh, why is Maguire not there? Why is he?" Because he's doing his own zone, so he gets the blame for something that he's not in control of, because the coaches are obviously telling him to mark that zone.
Yeah. So moving on to the Real Sociedad second leg of Thursday. I want to go through a starting 11, obviously, but also just briefly on thoughts on the game. I think it's an interesting one because it's obviously a game to rotate a lot. So Dan, do you think the likes of Ahmad will get a start, or do you think it'll be a little more cautious because obviously it's still a good team that goes to it?
I think it'd be a really good opportunity for him to start Ahmad. We're 4-0 up, but I mean we're probably going to win the game as well, to be fair. And he's been in the squad a couple of times. He got minutes there in the last game, sort of getting let him get a feel of the shirt. And I think Ahmad does have a really, really good chance to start in, to be fair. Because, I mean, like, Donny van de Beek's out, Cavani's out.
They're definitely out.
I think
definitely.
I didn't see Ollie saying, give him a time frame.
He said possibly Thursday, possibly Sunday. He wasn't sure which one.
Okay.
For both?
Yeah, for both.
I could change. I mean, Ahmad could still start on the right, to be fair, even if Cavani starts in the middle. I think it'd be great for him to have a number 9 like Cavani to whip balls into and cut inside.
I mean, if Cavani was fit, you'd probably want to save him for Chelsea at the weekend. If anything, this would be a game for Donny van de Beek potentially if he was fit, but it looks like that's going to be touch and go, so he's probably at best going to be on the bench.
I can't help but find it funny when I see people suggest Shoretire starts. Like he's 17. If he's going to be involved, he'll play another cameo off the bench.
Yeah,
for sure.
Can you imagine if he starts and Sociedad, score 2 early goals or something?
That's why it would never happen.
No.
It's stupid. If he's going to start a game, it would be with Rashford, Bruno, Maguire. They would show. He'd be Molly. It would be cuddled.
Yeah.
Not a chance he starts in this kind of.
The only one I can really see.
When Shoretire got his Premier League debut before Ahmad did, that did surprise me a bit. To be fair,
I think that might be a hint, though, that Ahmad starts in midweek, and that Shoretire will be coming off the bench again. I think Ollie just might want to distribute the minutes a little bit. It
also lets Shoretire have his moment in the Premier League of this is my debut. Whereas if you had Ahmad there as well, it kind of takes away from that a little bit. So it just separates that out as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably
a bit of history too, which is always nice.
He's from Newcastle as well, I believe. So also making his debut against probably his hometown club.
Went to the same academy as Alan Shearer, as far as I'm aware, before he changed.
Carrick.
Yeah, that was at Carrick as well. Yeah.
Did you see that Galbraith is in the B list now, so he could play on Thursday?
He'll be on the bench for sure, I think, because that might hint towards an injury in midfield.
As far as pivot players go, other than Pogba, Galbraith is probably the best passer in our club. He has a ridiculous passing range.
That is a big statement.
That it is. That's huge.
You sound like Harry Redknapp with Frank Lampard.
Yeah, I can't see, other than Pogba, any other pivot player who has the passing range Galbraith does. It's actually ridiculous.
Do you think his development season goes straight into the first team, or do you think he needs a loan?
I wanted him loaned in January, but obviously I didn't get my wish. But yeah, I think he's way too good for academy football now.
Yeah, I could definitely see him getting a cameo off the bench then if he's in the squad. So yeah, in terms of the starting 11 though, I think we all agree that Henderson will be in goal. Whether or not you want to start in the league is another matter, but we can't really affect that. In terms of defence, should we give Maguire the rest? United decision. What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely give Harry Maguire a rest here. I don't know if Ollie will, because he seems to have that Louis van Gaal principle of his captain always plays. But I think this is a perfect match to give Maguire the night off. We're 4-0 up, for God's sake. And so I think the back four I'd go with would be Brandon Williams, Axel Tuanzebe. I'd go with Victor Lindelof, because personally I'm saving Bailly for the weekend. But I think Ollie might go with Lindelof and Axel if he does do that. And then Alex Tellez at left back.
Same.
Me too.
Yeah. I think we all agree on that.
I think that's what the defence was in Paris, really. But with obviously Wan-Bissaka on the right, and I do think Tuanzebe needs a game to kind of get the past out of his system.
I watched last night on Sky Sport Football. I watched the playoff final between Villa and Derby, and I watched Tuanzebe there, and he just looks so confident, compared to the appearance this season. It's a shame. Obviously, he's a great player, and obviously played brilliant in Paris. And I know it's sort of like championship football, but he just didn't look like the same player.
I wonder if he lost confidence when, after the Paris game, he didn't start for a while. I wonder if he lost a bit of confidence there, and getting another setback with an injury. I wonder if he just, if he kind of felt miserable almost.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need to play your way into form, and he just hasn't gotten those opportunities, because he'll play once and then he's out of the team for 6 weeks.
And the centre back, they need constant games. People, I saw Spurs fans saying the same with Japhet Tanganga. They were saying, you got to loan him. Centre backs, they need consistent games. You're never going to develop as a 21, 22, 23-year-old unless you're playing, week in, week out. So there's going to be a big decision probably made about Tuanzebe soon. You've got to feel.
I still have a lot of confidence in him. I think he's got the pace to complement Maguire. Decent ability, not the best yet, but he's young. You can improve on that. He can improve on anything. He can bring the ball out of defence. He's a leader to some extent as well. He captained the side. I think it's Rodman, was it, or Rochdale? Get mixed up between them two, but so yeah, if he can play and then play well, I mean, we're against the tough side. We're probably going to play a good 11. I don't think they're just going to roll over.
Yeah, we need to do a professional job.
But yeah, I think we can all agree on the back four. Yeah. So in terms of the midfield, I think the only ones we know would definitely fit in terms of the pivot is Matic and Fred. So I don't know if there's not really much choice. So if McTominay is back, I'd probably go with him. Do you think that, Josh?
If he's touch and go, no, because the Chelsea game is really important. So my midfield three, if Donny is fit, would be Matic, Fred, and Donny, because Fred's very, very fit. And Matic, he's a professional player, and he was good versus Newcastle. Obviously, there's question marks if he can play 2 games. I'm sure he can, because he's not played a lot this season. If Donny isn't fit, then I'll play Juan.
Yeah, I think it's quite likely Mata starts as a number 10. But in terms of the forward line, what was you thinking, Apollo? Because would you say Diallo would start, or James? I don't know.
I want to see James and Ahmad on the wings. I think Cavani shouldn't be risked. I want him playing against Chelsea on Sunday, at the weekend. So I think we should not rush him back if he's not quite 100% given the extra few days. So then it's just a case of, do you give Martial a go or Greenwood up front? Because I want Ahmad and James on the wings.
James is best coming off the left as well, isn't he?
In my opinion, yeah.
I would say this is the perfect match for Anthony Martial to play. He doesn't give a fuck, and we don't care about the result particularly either because we're 4-0 up. So it's a match made in heaven or hell, I guess it would depend on how you look at it. But either way, I think this is the match. Just play him down the middle and then save our best front three, Greenwood, Cavani, and Rashford for the weekend. Chelsea is at least a must-not-lose match from a top four perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Play Tony Martial. It's a free hit, really. If we don't score, all we have to do is keep them out, and they're not going to score 4. I mean, I made to regret that, to be honest. But yeah, it's a free hit playing Tony Martial down the middle, and he's more of a senior player. So if you play like Ahmed, James, and Mason, they're really, really young. I mean, it might not be the best game to start all them 3 together, but yeah, I would start Tony Martial down the middle.
Yeah, see, I think it's quite likely Martial starts on the left, because I think we need to rest Dan James for Chelsea. Obviously, Chelsea is a game that suits him. Maybe he doesn't need the game to suit him anymore, but he's just played 2 games after not playing in a while. I know he's quite fit, but to be honest, I think he deserved to start against Chelsea. And if we can give him a rest here, I think that would be quite good. Then, of course, if Cavani is back for the Chelsea game, we can play Cavani down the middle, and Rashford and James maybe instead of Greenwood. What do you think about that resurgent?
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I think you make a very good point about Dan James not having played a lot of minutes for about a year and then coming into the team playing 2 matches in such quick succession. I think there's definitely a case for saying Martial off the left wing, Greenwood down the middle, and Ahmad on the right. I wouldn't be against that at all. I think it's a perfectly reasonable selection. I just don't want to see us risking Cavani because of injury potentially, or Marcus Rashford because he needs a rest. So as long as it's any 3 of the 4 we've discussed, I think that's a perfectly reasonable selection.
Yeah, it's difficult. Because we need to give players rotation. I definitely think Ahmad can start in this one. I mean, I know Ollie said no, we're probably not going to give Ahmad and Showa TV a game, but he's probably going to say that, isn't he? So
what he says and what he does, it's 2 completely different things.
Yeah, of course.
Also, technically, he said we're not going to. Sorry, go ahead.
Even if he was planning on starting them or starting either of them, he'd never tell us in advance because he wouldn't want the hype to build from the end of the Newcastle game to this game. He wouldn't tell us regardless.
Absolutely.
I was also just thinking, he said he's not going to start both of them. He never said he wouldn't start one of them. It's just one of those technicalities as well, I think. And like you say, even if he was going to start them, he'd never tell us.
See that in his pre-match interview now, like, oh, you told us Ahmad wouldn't start, and he'll be like, I said I wouldn't start both of them, but I didn't say I wouldn't start one of them. So I can just see him saying that right now.
Sneaky, mate.
They could, they could cause havoc. James, Greenwood, and Ahmad with that defence, or even Martial if he's up for it, which I don't think he is. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's all I've got written down. So I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about.
I think we covered everything that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Just predictions left.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with.
What about United Resurgent's new Twitter fame?
Oh yeah,
growing and growing.
A little bit every day. It's great to see.
You'll be on 1,000 soon.
899 as of this exact second. I just checked.
Yeah.
It's growing.
Not that I'm obsessed with it or anything.
I know.
So yeah, in terms of predictions, I think it'd be quite close because we're obviously going to play a rotated side, and I think they're going to go with a fairly strong 11, hoping that they can sort of catch us off guard. So To be honest, I think maybe like a 2-1 win or a 1-1 draw. I'll go 2-1 just because positivity. But I don't know what Dan thinks about the predictions.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think it'll be fairly low scoring. I won't be surprised if you lose the game by a small margin. Say if they get a 2-1 win, maybe a 1-0 win, or even if it's a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be exactly like European Europa League game. I think it's going to be quite slow and boring. And as long as we don't concede 4 goals and not score any, then you're not too fussed about what the result is. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 United wins to keep us optimistic.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
It depends really on the teams. If it's the team I've got written down here, and Sociedad probably maybe rotate a bit because they might concentrate on the league now after the result, I would go for maybe 3-1 to United. If they go with the same team from the first leg, then maybe a 1-1, 2-1 to them.
Yeah. So what about Apollo?
I think something like a 2-1 United win. I think they'll score because I think Ole's going to rotate quite a bit, so some players might be a little rusty. So yeah, I can see them grabbing 1 goal, but I can't see any like them getting close to what they need to overturn the deficit. I think it's just a matter of they might grab the odd consolation goal.
Yeah, and United Resurgent.
I think they're gonna rotate somewhat. I think they know the tie is over, but I think they'll come at us positively the way they did in the first leg, and I think that's going to play into our hands. That it's going to be a very exciting match. I'm going to go for the opposite of you guys and say a 3-2 United win with Ahmad scoring his first United goal.
Yeah, I mean, if they have to score 5 goals, which I think they do, then it's going to be the perfect game for the likes of the pacey players. If James starts, it's a perfect game for him, and add Greenwood. So yeah, I can see it being.
I'm just picturing a 19-year-old Amad Diallo running at Nacho Monreal and his nursing home legs, and he's going to get burnt. So I'm thinking it's going to be his day if he does start.
Can hope so, can't we? That'd be brilliant.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll end it there then. Thank you everyone for watching. Like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.